Welcome, Mishpocha, to Tikvah radio show, The Sound of Hope. I'm your host, Liliana Inez, and I'm so glad you joined us. In this program, we want to share with you some wonderful stories of Jewish people who've had amazing encounters with the Messiah of Israel. At times, we will play some original songs from our band Tapestry of Praise. My husband Denny and I make our home in California and love to write songs based on the Jewish scriptures. Songs of hope, shalom, joy, and comfort. Many of these songs are part of our personal experience of God's touch and care in our lives. We will also be sharing some thoughts and teachings using the eternal words of Adonai that bring hope and change in our lives. If you would like to purchase our album or individual songs, you can find us on CD Baby and iTunes under Tapestry of Praise. Our albums are California Gold, Wall of Fire, and Tikvah. Now, on to our interview. Shalom and welcome again, Mishpocha, to Tikvah radio show. We're so glad that you're here with us. Today we have an interesting interview with Rachel Keller. Her story is very unusual. I'm going to do a brief intro of her early life so we can focus mainly on her life after college, when the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob led her through some amazing experiences in her life. Rachel was born in 1966 in South Central Los Angeles, California. She grew up in West LA and was born and raised in a Jewish home. She and her family attended a Reform synagogue. She made her bat mitzvah in Israel. As a teen, she attended Beverly Hills High School, where most of her friends were Jewish. Her family celebrated both the Jewish holy days and high holy days. She believed in God, did the prayers, and studied Judaism as she was taught by her rabbi. So now let's pick up her interview at this point, where Rachel shares her ideas on her future life while in her teen years. Anything interesting happened to you around high school, your teen years, that you wanted to share?
When I came back from Israel and was hanging out with all of my friends, it was really important to me that I was going to marry someone who was Jewish. I wanted to continue having, a Jewish home, and that wasn't gonna change. I was gonna marry Jewish and have a Jewish home.
All right.
But I, really enjoyed being able to be a part of a Jewish community. So I really wanted to stick with that.
During your college years, that started affecting you?
Well, let's see. Where shall we begin? Do you want me to tell you about the bowling alley?
Yeah, tell us about the bowling alley. That sounds interesting.
I had decided that I was going to stop drinking alcohol. And I said, okay, God, this is for you. And I threw my drink down the sink, and at about 2:30 in the morning, I decided I would go bowling.
Okay. Let me go back just a little bit on that. So you were having an issue with drinking. So there was some issues going on in your life at that time that you were concerned about.
Right. When you get into college, you get into things that you wouldn't have thought you'd get into. And one of the things was drinking. You have a little bit at a party, and then you have a little bit more so you can relax, and then it becomes, something that you do all the time. And I was done with it. I needed to change my whole life. I needed to do something different because alcohol wasn't doing it for me anymore. So I went bowling. Yes,
unusual.
I did.
At what time was that in the morning?
That was 2:30 in the morning.
Wow.
Yep.
So this is a 24/7 bowling alley place, huh?
Yes, it was. It was actually a Friday night, Friday the 13th. And I decided they had midnight bowling. And so I went. And of course, I went by myself, and the lovely bowling alley personnel put a gentleman next to me, and we started talking and found out that he actually lived in the same apartment building that I lived in.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we started talking, and then after the bowling alley, we started hanging out. And about 2 days later, I called my mom. I was all excited. I met this gentleman, and he was a sweetheart. And, you know, told him his name, and she's like, "Oh, he sounds like he's Jewish." So we got all excited. And then, of course, it was right around Easter. So he put a note on my door, and he said, "Happy Easter if you celebrate it." I was like, oh, man, he's not Jewish. I can't marry him. And then every day we hung out, started to like him better. And 3 months later, he asked me to marry him, and I said, sure.
Wow, that was quite a change.
Oh, that was quite a change. Oh, yeah. This wonderful man, Mark, he just fit the bill. It wasn't like I had to work hard at it or anything. And we actually talked about religion, and he was totally in for having the kids know about Judaism and all of that. And so I was happy. We didn't really have to worry about it until I got pregnant.
Okay.
It's amazing how much God puts on your heart that He is important, and that the religion in which you are in is important. So, we started talking about religion and what we were going to do, and he was okay with it. And so when the kids got older, I started going to synagogue, and he wouldn't give up his Friday night softball games. And we started taking the kids to church on Sundays, and, I wouldn't go in. I would stay in the nursery because I wasn't into the whole, Christ thing. And it just got tougher and tougher as the kids got older. So.
Did you feel a bit of a issue there where part of your,
Yeah, it was definitely putting a strain on our marriage. And I don't believe in divorce at all. When you find somebody, you stick with it, you work with it, and you fix the problem. But this problem was bigger than both of us. And, divorce could have been one of the results. Right. And neither one of us wanted that, but neither one of us wanted to give up our religion either. So that made it really tough.
What started changing for you on that? Well,
Mark, with his wonderful insight that he has, knew that he wasn't going to give up on the family. So he did some research and found out about the Messianic Jewish movement. And I basically, when he told me about it, I wanted nothing to do with it, because if you're Jewish and you believe in Christ, you're no longer Jewish. And that's what I grew up with. So for me, it was a no-brainer. I'm not going. Because they're not Jewish. Why would I want to put myself in that situation? But then we got more and more into it, and he's trying to explain it to me, and we were arguing, and I said, fine, we'll go. And of course he says, the services are tomorrow at 10 o'clock. So
he was all set.
After that, that was it. So I was like stuck in a corner. So we ended up going. The synagogue that we ended up going to, the Messianic synagogue, was absolutely amazing. When I walked in, and I'm telling you, I was none too happy to be there. But as soon as I walked in the doors, it was as though I was home. I was greeted by two wonderful people who made me welcome into their family. You know, it wasn't even like we were strangers. We walked in and we were home. So it worked out. They did the whole gamut of, the Jewish religion in terms of they did the Torah study, they pulled out the Torah, did Hebrew, and the people who were not born and raised Jewish knew just as much Hebrew as I expected when I went into a Jewish synagogue. It was amazing.
Tell me, there was some interesting stuff that God started doing.
I'll do that. Okay, so before we actually even started going to the Messianic synagogue, I used to have dreams, and I would be very confused about them and ask Mark, what do they mean? Like one of the dreams that I had, I was actually looking up onto a mountain, and on the mountain were three gentlemen standing there talking to each other, and one of them ascended up into the sky. And
Wow.
He just looks at me and he says, say that again? So I explained it, and he goes, you do realize that's in Matthew? And I'm like, what's Matthew? And he's explaining to me that that's in the New Testament. And I didn't know that. I don't read, I've never read the New Testament, so I wouldn't have known. And I had a lot of visions, a lot of dreams, and Mark explained them to me that a lot of them came out of the New Testament.
You recognize the stories, but you never read the book.
Exactly.
So
I
how
wouldn't
could you
know.
know something like that unless you were given it supernaturally?
Yeah. God kept on, pushing me and nudging me and saying, hey, I'm over here. Don't ignore me. In 2003, there was a trip that the synagogue was actually doing, and the trip was to Israel, and you basically walk through Israel as if we were walking with Yeshua or Jesus. Uh-huh. Of course, I wasn't a believer, and I wanted Mark to go on the trip because he had never been to Israel. And he was all gung-ho for it. He wanted to go, and I was all excited because he got to, he was going to go and see Israel and experience it. And about 2-3 weeks before the trip was supposed to happen, he actually heard from the Lord that he was not supposed to go and that I was supposed to go. Well, I was working, and there was no way that was going to happen. But he had already talked to my employer and set it up so that I could go on the trip. So I thought that was amazing, and I was like, okay, I'll go. Okay, so on part of the trip, one of the days was we went to Gethsemane. And while we were there, I could feel the holy presence. I mean, there was definitely something there. And I could feel as though, there was just this kind of turning point where I could understand how people who believe in Yeshua or Jesus could feel, his holy presence and want to be a part of that. And then we got back on the bus and we ended up at a kibbutz, which is like a working community where we were going to have lunch. Well, when we got there, they were not expecting as many people, and they did not have enough food. And of course, we all prayed because we know the story of, Jesus who fed thousands with 3 fishes and 5 loaves of bread, or the opposite. And that miracle happened at the kibbutz, and we still had leftovers. Yeah, that was amazing, to me. And, to read that in the Bible and actually have it be a personal experience was
And you never
amazing.
experienced anything like that. So what was in the scriptures happened in the natural. So what did the people in the kibbutz think? They knew there wasn't enough food.
Yeah, they were amazed, and the people who were being fed were amazed. We didn't leave there hungry. So I mean, awesome. that was just a blessing on itself.
Wow.
And then after that, that's when it gets interesting. Sorry, have to take a breather because it is just amazing to me to be able to have the experience and then to explain it. I just love it. Okay, so we were on one side of the Sea of Galilee where we ate, and then our kibbutz that we were staying on was on the other side of the Sea of Galilee, and of course the only way to get there is on a boat. So needless to say, I don't like boats. It's too rocky and, I get seasick. So we get on this boat and I'm none too thrilled. And I'm sitting there, and of course it's around sunset time, and just kind of relaxing and trying to keep myself focused. And of course, the Sea of Galilee is where the story is of Peter and the disciples are on the boat, and it's rocky, and
there's a storm, and
there's a storm. I mean, it is just
water's coming in the boat, and they're about to sink, and they're
exactly. Well, that's pretty much how I felt on this boat. I was not happy.
Yeah.
So, I'm enjoying the colors of the sunset and just trying to relax. And I closed my eyes, and the water is all choppy, and I'm trying to relax.
So you don't get sick.
So exactly. And I realize that the water is calm.
So you have your eyes closed and suddenly the water is calm.
Yep. Right. And I keep my eyes closed because there is no way that this could physically be happening. And I realized that there is no movement of the water. The boat is still, and I decide I'm going to open my eyes. And when I did that, there was nobody on the boat.
Wow.
The water was calm. The sky was all the color of the most beautiful sunset you can think of. And I turned to look out of the boat, and there he is standing on the water, and he says to me,
"Who's he?"
I'm going to assume that it's Yeshua, that it's Jesus standing on the water.
Okay.
Because he looked at me and he said, Rachel, do you believe? And of course I'm like, I'm not sure who this guy is. I'm not really going to answer him, but I'll look at him again. And he says, Rachel, do you believe? And I'm thinking and I'm thinking and I'm thinking. And then he looks at me and he says to me, he says, Rachel, do you believe? And I just stopped and I said, yes. And all of a sudden, the boat is rocking again. The people are on the boat. It's loud. It's, it's all choppy. And I just sit there in total astonishment of what just happened.
You had a personal visit.
I had a personal visit.
I took you in a different realm because nobody was there.
Nope, nobody was there. There was a couple that actually, when everything was done, that actually looked at me and said, why did you just scream yes really loud? And I was like, okay. So
you didn't know what to say at this point.
I couldn't say anything. I was in, when you just get to a point where you're just so overwhelmed that you just cannot speak. That's where I was.
Wow.
And yeah, so, well, he said that 3 times. In Jewish tradition, if you wanted to learn about Judaism, you're usually turned away 3 times. They really want you to know, they really want to know that you really want to know about Judaism. And God used that a lot on me, a lot of 3s. The 3 gentlemen in my dream, the 3 times that he asked me about, do I believe? So, of course, I'm like, okay, well, that's only 1 time. So when we were getting back to our kibbutz where we were going to stay, the rabbi told our group that we were going to have a mikveh, where you go in and you cleanse yourself and come out renewed.
Right.
Well, we go back to the room and I decide, well, I'm going to put on my bathing suit. And my roommate was like, what are you doing? And of course, I'm not saying anything. And I'm putting on my bathing suit and I get ready and I'm walking down with her. And she's like, okay. So we gather as a group and we pray and we go into the water. And my whole group is looking at me like, what are you doing? Because the whole mikveh or baptism is to come up renewed in the word and in a relationship with Yeshua. So they're just looking at me like, okay. So I get in the water and everyone goes to get baptized. And I say to the group, well, what about me? And of course, everybody is stunned. Because I'm not a believer. Why would I want to do that?
Right. They knew something was happening. Yeah.
Exactly. So they realize something's going on and they pray over me and I take the same step that they take and the water isn't going any higher. And
so
I
you're
go
going
out farther.
deeper in the water, but the level is not changing, is what you're saying.
Correct. Yeah, that's exactly.
That's
water
just not
level
normal.
Is not changing.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I keep on walking and the water is still at that same level. So I turn around and I say to the rabbi, what am I supposed to do? And he says, well, get down on your knees. So I get down on my knees and the water level has still not changed.
So your head's above the water. Are you in the Jordan River?
Yeah, like my chest is above the water. I still have not gotten wet yet. So I get down on my knees and I dunk myself. And as I'm coming up, I'm praying, that the Lord, that Yeshua be a part of me. And I come up and the water is like over my head. So that was a little astonishing to me.
Yeah. Versus you're above the water, right, from your chest up, and then
Yes.
you dunk yourself and you're coming up and it's over your head. That's
correct. So that's number 2. And to me that's not possible for that to happen.
right. It's not
By itself. That doesn't happen.
right. It's another supernatural experience.
Exactly. So that's
not
number
normal.
2. So when the trip is over and everyone is amazed, that I had decided to give myself and have a relationship with Yeshua, and they're all happy. And we get back from the trip. And when I'm at my house, this is like a week later, and as new believers, we still have that thing in our head, like, do I really want to believe? Do I really want to do all this work, to know who he is and all of that? And it was important for me as a Jew, I really have to know that I want to have a relationship with him. That changes everything as a Jewish person. I needed to know I could still stay as a Jewish person and still believe. And it was really important for me.
Right.
So about a week or so later, we're at the house and I'm, cutting the rose bushes back and trimming up and doing all that kind of stuff. My family had given me a prayer box when I went to Israel, and it was really important for me, and I wore it all the time. Well, while I was gardening, I lost my prayer box, my prayer necklace, and I had to have that. It was not like, oh, I'll just get another one. So I started digging through the rose thorns, and of course there's red ants. Now, mind you, I'm not getting cut from the rose thorns, and I'm not getting bit by the red ants. Wow. And I say to God, Lord, I will believe in Yeshua if you give me back my prayer box. And as I'm digging into the pile of roses and I scoot them out, right there in the middle of that pile is a crown of thorns and my prayer box smack dab in the middle.
Wow.
That was number 3.
Wow.
So I couldn't argue anymore. There was no argument. I couldn't. I already told him, this is what I'm going to do. And I went in and I looked at my husband and he says to me, what did you do? And I said, I prayed to God that if he finds my prayer box, I will believe in Yeshua full-heartedly. And he goes, you do, don't you? And I'm like, yep. He says, honey, you're glowing right now.
Wow.
And that was it.
You saw a physical glow on you.
Yep. So Yeshua and I are best friends. He is, my father, my go-to, and we still have our little arguments, our little disagreements, but he helps me understand not only the Old Testament, but how Yeshua came and taught the Old Testament again, because as Jewish people, we have forgotten what was important to us, that what God gave to us. we lost sight of that. And having Yeshua be able to walk among the Jews and explain it so that we can understand it is just amazing to me. And I don't ever want to lose that.
How has he impacted your life?
I'm a lot more calmer. I used to be a lot more argumentative on certain God stuff. You're not right, I am. When I'm talking to other people, and I've realized that it's not me being right, it's not them being right, it's God being right. And I am more open to it now, and being from a Jewish background, I have a different perspective than other people who don't, and they like to hear it. They like to hear that perspective, and I love sharing it. It's just better. And Mark has always been praying for me, and now together, we have a much stronger relationship, and the kids see it. So, and that's really good.
Awesome.
Oh,
you don't feel like you have to be arguing about things. You realize that what God says is really the most important thing than opinion.
Exactly.
And you are just as Jewish today.
Oh, yes. Just as Jewish as I was when, growing up and being in high school and in college. I honestly believe that I'm probably more Jewish. I don't know if you can be more Jewish, but the traditions are more important to me because I have an understanding of it.
Well, he's the Jewish Messiah, and
he was a Jewish carpenter.
He was born Jewish.
Yes.
He was raised Jewish. He did all the.
That's right.
But like you said before, he's bringing an understanding of what the actual foundation of the scriptures in God's heart was to begin with, and that the Jewish people have forgotten. Yep. And that has brought you to have an actual personal relationship.
Yes.
Friendship with
and
God.
It's different too when you think of Judaism, you think of it as a relationship. As a religion. Mm-hmm. And when you think of Christianity, you think of it as a religion. And now that I have both, I now have a stronger relationship with God and His Son. And it's through the Holy Spirit that I am able to pull all of that in. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's just amazing.
Awesome.
It's great to have traditions. It's great to have holidays that you have to celebrate. But if you don't have a relationship and an understanding of what you're celebrating, then it's just a day.
Yeah.
But so to be blessed and be able to, be loved by my dad, that's pretty awesome.
You mean God as your father, as your dad?
Yes.
As your
yes.
Abba. Yeah, that's beautiful. So I wanted to ask you if you would pray for the people that are listening, whoever is open, that God would do some wonderful, amazing things in their lives so that they can have that beautiful connection with Yeshua that God gifted you, whatever that looks like. Would you pray for that for the people that are listening? Right.
So, Lord, I give you my testimony, my story, so that other people can hear it and relate to it. And if they have any questions, Lord, be there for them. Be there 3 times. Give them the visions. Give them the stories. Give them the opportunities to be able to hear your word, know that you are talking to them when they hear a little whisper and not sure who that is. Lord, let them know that it's you. For those who are having a hard time, just sit, relax, think positive, and know that the Lord will always be there for you. We love you. We thank you for everything that you give us. Lord, thank you for being our Abba, our Father, our personal relationship. Lord, we thank you for everything. In Yeshua's name, amen.
Welcome back, Mishpocha. Hope you enjoyed this unusual journey of Rachel Keller. She had some wonderful experiences as Adonai revealed himself and the Mashiach to her. The journey started where she was getting a lot of dreams, and she didn't totally understand what they meant. Some of those dreams, actually, her husband understood. They were related to the Bible. They were things that happen in the Bible. She didn't know about those things, especially in the book of the New Testament. And he was able to share that with her. In this Bible sharing, I just want to briefly review the various people that God appeared to and why God appeared to them. Adam and Eve, they actually walked with God. They had a relationship with him in the Garden of Eden. We can only imagine what it would be like to be able to do that on a regular basis, walk with God, talk with him, share with him. It's just amazing. Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, Gideon, the prophet Samuel, and King David, they all had personal visits from God. God spoke to them. God had a relationship with them. Their faith grew. And these visits transformed these people's lives. Joseph, the one who rescued Israel from starvation when he became the right-hand man to the Pharaoh, he not only saved his people Israel, but he saved the nation of Egypt. God also spoke to all the prophets. That's why they were able to prophesy. They each had communication with God. Prophets like Elijah and Isaiah. And Elijah actually heard God in the still small voice. So as we can see, it's not unusual to read that God appeared to people. The words appear and appearance are throughout the Jewish Bible. The Hebrew word most commonly used for appearance in the Tanakh is Ra, which means the seeing of God. Well, let's find out, why does God appear to people? Well, as one of the writers I was reading says, it's a way for God to make himself known to a person, and even to a whole nation, like he did to Israel. It also helps lead people to understand his nature, his purpose, and his heart for them. So I would say that one of the reasons is that God cares about us, not only wants us to know him, but he wants us to know that he cares about us, and that if someone seeks him, he will be there to make himself known to them in a heartbeat. God appeared to Abraham personally and also spoke to him in dreams, and in Genesis 15:1 we have an example of this. After these things, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision, saying, "Do not fear, Abram. I am a shield to you. Your reward will be great." At this point, Abram was being called out of the nation where his family was, out of the the city of Ur, and he was called to go and start a nation of his own that God was going to give him, that God was going to bring out of his union with Sarah. And he had a special purpose and plan for that nation. And of course, we know that nation is Israel. God also appears to people to show them that he has a special plan and a purpose for them. Do you know, Mishpacha, that God has a beautiful special plan for you and a special purpose for you? He loves you so much. And my favorite scripture, Jeremiah 29:11, it says, "The plans that I have for you are for good and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope." That's a prophet, Jeremiah, prophesying the words God gave him to share with his people. God appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and Jacob, and he promised them that their descendants would be specially chosen of him. So that means that God gave a special purpose and plan for Israel. God also appeared to give encouragement and to bring deliverance when people need to be delivered from evil. God appeared to Moses promising deliverance from slavery in Egypt, and we can read that in Exodus chapter 3, verse 2. And in Exodus chapters 19 through 24, God appeared to Moses to establish a covenant with Israel. God also appears to people so that they may believe in him. It is his desire for us to have a personal relationship with him. He also wants us to know him through the scriptures, that he not only exists, but that he is personally involved in the lives of people. He cares about the things that you need. He cares about having a good relationship, that you want to have good relationships with people. He cared about people when they were looking to find the right spouse. He cares about every area of our lives. There isn't one area that he's not interested in. He is our Creator God, and he loves us. In Exodus chapter 4, verse 5, it says, "This, says the Lord, is so that they may believe that the Lord, the God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has appeared to you." Now, one of the ways we know that Yeshua was the Messiah is that he had to be a prophet like Moses. The scripture says in Deuteronomy 18:15, Moses prophesied that the Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me. What kind of prophet was Moses? Well, he was a prophet that was a leader, a lawgiver, a deliverer, a teacher, a priest, an anointed one, a mediator, a human, and one of God's chosen people, a Jew. He was performing the role of intermediary between God and man, speaking the words of God just like Moses. The Messiah was to speak the words of God just like Moses. But different than Moses, the Messiah would give his own life. He would die for the sins of his own people. He would be the perfect lamb, the perfect sacrifice that would take care of the sin issue for his people and for all humanity. So both Moses and Yeshua also performed many miracles, and these miracles validated their message. It was a sign they were called of God and that the words they spoke were from God. So Moses, many miracles happened through Moses, and many miracles happened through Yeshua, the Mashiach. It says in the book of Isaiah that the Messiah would perform certain miracles. In Isaiah 35, 5 through 6, we read that the Messiah would cause the eyes of the blind to be opened, the ears of the deaf to be unstopped. The lame man would leap. The tongue of the dumb would be able to sing. Isaiah 29:19 says, the deaf would hear the words of the Torah, and the eyes of the blind would see out of obscurity and even come out of blindness, out of darkness. So let's go back to Yeshua and the miracles. There was a lot of interesting things about Rachel, how she would have dreams and experiences that were all in the New Testament, and she didn't even know that book. She had never read it. She had a dream about 3 men and one was taken up. That's when Yeshua was taken up to heaven after he was resurrected and he went back to be with God the Father, sit on the throne at the right hand of God. That's in the scriptures. And in the book of Mark, it talks about a situation where there was a storm in the Sea of Galilee, just like what Rachel was going through. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit. In Mark 4:35, you can read that. And I'm just going to briefly talk about what happened just before that storm. Yeshua was teaching by the Sea of the Galilee. A crowd had built up. It was of great size, and they were actually pushing against him. They wanted to be right there next to him. So he went and sat in a boat that was offshore and used that as a pulpit. And he started telling many stories. That's how he would teach the people. When evening came, Yeshua was wearied and he felt he needed to rest. And seeing the great multitude would continue to press against him, he asked his Talmudim that they would cross the lake. He said, let's cross to the other side of the lake. And he proceeded to get down on the bottom of the boat and lay down, and exhaustingly, he just fell asleep right away. The evening was coming on, and as often on the Sea of Galilee, which is set among the hills, the wind rises as the sun sinks behind the highland on the western shore astern. The Talmudim, who were fishermen themselves, were used to such squalls, and at first probably let down their sail and pulled so as to keep the boat from heading towards the wind. But things got worse, and when the crazy on-deck craft began to fill and get waterlogged, they grew alarmed. The squall was fiercer than usual and must have been pretty bad for them to be frightened because, as I said, they were seasoned fishermen. So they woke Yeshua, and it took them a bit of time to do that because he was exhausted. And at one point they said, "Don't you care that we will drown?" So let's read and see what happened. Matthew 8:23 through 27. And we read, "He boarded the boat and his talmidim followed. Then without warning, a furious storm arose on the lake so that waves were sweeping over the boat. But Yeshua was sleeping. So they came and roused him, saying, 'Sir, help, we're about to die.' And he said to them, 'Why are you afraid? So little faith have you?' Then he got up and rebuked the wind and the waves, and there was a dead calm. The men were astounded, and they asked themselves, 'What kind of man is this, that even the winds and the sea obey him?'" The Mashiach is not only man, but he is God. He is the Son of God, as it says in Isaiah 9:6. "Unto us a child is born, and a son is given." And as the Son of God, he has authority to heal. He has authority to take away blindness and deafness. We have prayed for people who have been sick. We prayed for a man whose eye he was told was blind, and he started able to see. We have prayed for people who have been sick with back ailments, and God has healed them. God is the God of miracles. Yeshua is the Messiah that heals and does miracles. And he has authority over nature. And because he is the Son of God, he has authority over the whole universe. He told Rachel 3 times that he asked her if she believed, if she was finally at that point where she would make that decision to believe. Shortly before that, she was at a kibbutz where they didn't have enough food, and there was a prayer said that Yeshua, in the name of Yeshua, that he would multiply the food in that place so that everyone could eat. And they had read a part in the scriptures that said that there was not enough food for the crowd that Yeshua was preaching to. And someone donated some fish and some bread, and Yeshua prayed over it, and it was multiplied, and everyone ate, and there was actually more than enough. So today, I encourage you, will you believe that Yeshua is the Mashiach today? The scripture says, "He who believes and is immersed shall be saved." Thank you for listening to Tikvah Radio Show, the voice of hope. If you have been blessed by this program and want to join us in sharing with others the hope of Yeshua HaMashiach, a gift of any amount will be appreciated. You can donate and contact us on our website at tikvahradio.com. Once again, that's TIKVAH radio.com. Thank you for joining us, and God bless.